Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Macro Snapshot and the new week. We are Monday, November the 17th, 2025. A fairly quiet overnight session and sort of on the weekend, not a huge amount of news particularly. What we do get this week are the FOMC minutes from the last meeting. And let's just see where we're at. We're now down to less than 50% chance of a cut at this meeting. And that's gone down substantially. If you look over the last sort of day or week or month, you can see that, going back a month ago, we're at over 90%. So definitely the market wants to know a little bit from this FOMC minutes, what a little bit more detail. And if you remember, that was the meeting where we had a dissension. So we had Schmidt, who voted for no cut at all. And then, of course, we had Trump's appointee, Miran, who voted for a 50 basis point cut. But what was most interesting was that Powell himself said that they were in a fog, lacking data, and that there was significant divergence of opinion amongst committee members, and also that a December meeting was far from a done deal. So I think we know all that. And it's interesting that the market since then has essentially just repriced. And we can look at something like, let's have a look at, let's say, for example, ZQ, which is the Fed funds futures for December. And you can see here that basically going back to the Fed meeting, we've seen sort of the price come down, and even over the last 2 or 3 trading sessions, that continues to push lower, and that's pushing down the expectations for a cut. And so on Wednesday we will get the FOMC minutes, and we'll just see how deep those divisions were, and that's going to be quite important. The second thing, which is pretty important, is that we're going to start to get some government data. It's not confirmed yet, but it looks as though on Thursday we may get sort of the September jobs number, including possibly the unemployment rate. Now again, is this going to be fully accurate? Is this going to be old news? Maybe the market's not going to react too much, but the market has been starved of data for whatever it is, 6, 7, 8 weeks or so since September, I think. And so the point is here is that there could be a bit of a reaction to that. And the thing is, we're also getting Nvidia. So let's have a look at Nvidia stocks here. Nvidia, oops, sorry, I'm just going to bring up the Nvidia chart. And that's on Wednesday as well. So we'll get the Fed minutes, and then we'll get Nvidia. And as you can see here in Nvidia, we are starting to get some of these moving averages starting to flatten out a little bit. This is the 20, 50, 100, and 200-day EMA. This is still in a strong uptrend, but no doubt that, momentum is starting to sort of flatline. Possibly if we get sort of, a disappointment, the next level down here could be, this 164 level here down here. We'll do a bit of a preview of that as we get closer. But that's mimicking the general equities. We saw that the S&P 500 here is just definitely running out of a little bit of energy. And if you look at the moving averages, they're still all quite positive. You can see they're sort of positively moving up. But if we look at some shorter term moving averages, so let's say an 8 and 32, 16 and 64 EMAs, you can definitely see that the energy we're starting to get a few crossovers. And those shorter term moving averages, if you look at those, are definitely starting to move over. So Nvidia is a big deal, and also the FOMC minutes. But probably the key thing is going to be the labor report. Even though it's not going to give a perfect read on where we are now with the employment market, it will definitely sort of symbolically start pushing things. We also have this morning a little bit closer to home, we have Canadian data. We have the inflation rate. Keep in mind that the BOC have been saying that they're relatively comfortable where rates are at the moment. But if we actually look here at the consensus, sort of the month over month, got a 0.2. And if we look at the trim mean, which is really what the BOC prefers more, expecting a consensus of 3. So that's still a little bit higher than where they want to be, but they are, concerned about the economy. So if we actually just look at the Canadian dollar, let's have a look at that. Just bring that up a little bit. Where's the USD versus CAD? Sorry, just trying to find. Here we go. So you can see that the US dollar versus CAD just been going sideways for the last few days. The US dollar has been sort of grinding up against CAD, but recently just fallen down a little bit. The reality here is that the Canadian economy looks as though it's stabilizing a little bit. We had stronger than expected manufacturing data. But the point is here is that if inflation comes in higher than expected, it's going to put the BOC in a difficult place. But in order for them really to cut, would have to see inflation, I think, coming in a lot lower, because they have said that they're relatively happy with where they are at the moment. Apart from that, we also have Jefferson from the FOMC speaking. Again, it's going to be important to see just the divergence of views on the committee. We'll see what he has to say. Overnight, we did have the Japanese GDP, which came in, in contraction territory, but it wasn't as bad as feared. So if we look at the Japanese dollar here, you can see that the dollar versus the Japanese yen here, you can see that it looks as though the dollar wants to push higher. So we've got a sort of slightly softer sort of GDP. Although some people are saying, just reading the commentary, that that's is sort of potentially sort of temporary because there's a lack of or less tourists and also less exports to the US, especially in the car section, in the car exports. But they're expected to rebound. Although it does look as though the US dollar here is pushing a bit higher. If we look at the US dollar overall, the dollar index, you can see here that it failed. Let's just go back to the more regular traditional EMAs here. You can see that as it's pretty much in a sideways pattern. It didn't get above the 100 here. It failed at the 200 EMA. So the dollar here, it's technically sort of trending upwards here, but it's sort of a weak trend and it's finding lack of impulse. And again, this is probably going to, in a certain sense, be affected by Nvidia, just to see if the economy, if if the stock market wants to push higher, but more particularly by the employment data was starting to get on Thursday, and also the Fed minutes, which we'll get on before that on the Wednesday. So at this point, the dollar, essentially in a bit of a trading range, although it is with a slightly upwards bias. Okay, just finally, guys, want to have a quick look at oil. Again, not a huge amount. You can see there was this sort of bullish flag, but just watch this sort of downtrend, which failed here at this downtrend line. Again, you can see, look at these moving averages, the 100 and the 200, fairly flat. Not a lot happening here. Pushed down because of OPEC, and then strikes on Russian facilities, but being rejected here. Really, I'd say it has to get above this sort of a downward trend to push a lot higher. But at the moment, it just seems to be trading in a slightly soggy way, in a sideways way. Okay, guys, I'm not going to take up too much time because there's really not a huge amount going on this morning. Really, it's a moment. Probably just going to be sort of looking at the charts and preparing for later in the week. So I'm going to leave it there, and we'll get back tomorrow with a bit more granularity and detail. Thank you. Have a great day.